Welcome to the JAMODI Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders, so let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it.
The JAMODI Podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
So you did mention Calipari, and I kind of started off too with that packet that I got in 2006 that I'll tell you, Coach, it just really gave me a kind of a framework for offensively how I wanted our teams to be able to play. And then what it really did was give me even a laser sharp focus to skill work. Because instead of stationary ball handling things, I'm still a Pistol Pete fan. So all the raps and stuff, like we're still going to do some of those things. But taking parts of dribble drive, the actions that I see them do quite a bit, and then creating skill work drills out of that. I mean, that's really what your offense did. How did it go from the attack, skip, attack? Like, what were your influences with that?
Again, everything that I've learned and done is what the players have taught me. So you watch your players play, and I think any good coach, you want them in the best spots to succeed. And I think each year, and then me watching each year, I would change this, I would change that. Well, it just so happened, there was one year we lost to a team twice during the regular season. Got beat pretty good both times, 12, 15, 18, somewhere around there. And now we're playing them in the playoffs. And the coach was kind of an old-fashioned coach in the fact that he was going to play straight man. He was going to play 5 or 6 guys. That was going to be it. So I went into the game with a mindset. I told our players, we are not taking any shot in the first half outside the paint. We're going to drive it. We're going to drive it. We're going to drive it. And we're going to drive it. We're going to get them in foul trouble and see what we can do. We're not going to settle. And next thing you know, we're up 18.5. We win by 25. So that made me kind of start thinking, well, why not have that attitude? Now, obviously, you can't just drive it if you're playing whatever else. That's kind of where back in the mid-90s, when I started thinking, everybody talks about analytics now and all that stuff, but that's when I started thinking, look, every time we shoot the ball, we want to try and get 3 points out of it, either the old-fashioned 3 or the 3-point line. And that's when I took away from the rack to the 3-point line. And then when I was in the NBA, with the best players in the world, usually in the NBA, it's right at about 60% from the charge circle in, which I call the rack zone. And then the corner 3 in the NBA is usually right around 40%. So at the rack and in, every time you shoot that's 1.2 points per shot. If you shoot 40% from the 3, it's 1.2 points per shot. If you can consistently be above 1.0, 1.1, you're going to be very successful on points per shot. Okay. Now, the best players in the world on the rest of the 3 were between 33 to 35%. Okay, so let's just say 35%. You're still 1.05 points per shot there. But the best players in the world, those 5 years, I believe, they were at 40%, 39, and 38% from the charge circle to the 3-point line. So you're looking at 0.8 points per shot. And this is something when I worked with Coach Carl, when I worked with George was smart enough to figure out. Now, obviously, it can't be all rack or 3. But the less of those mid-range shots you take, the more of the open 3s and to the rack that you have. Plus, the best shot really is you drive, get to the rack, and get fouled. Usually, you're going to shoot 2 free throws. If you just shoot 70%, that's 1.4 points, per, for that attack and so forth. So it just made me think and just start realizing that's kind of where the evolution of the offense and for myself to get to where we are now.
Did you ever think as a high school coach, when you're kind of thinking about different ways to create space, different ways to attack, and really placing players in dangerous spots the way you were, that within about 20 years, you'd be implementing it on some NBA teams?
No, I never did it for anybody else. I just did it because, like I said, each year, what worked well? Okay. I mean, when I first started, I wasn't that smart. I would have, I had a really good point guard, ended up being a 3-time All Pac-10 player at Stanford at the time. And he was really good. He could get to the rack on anybody. So my 2 wings were free throw line extended. So my 4 out was 2 guards up top, 2 wings, free throw line extended. But when he graduated, my next point guard couldn't do it. So then I dropped the wings to the corner to give him at least a double gap, not a single gap.
Yeah.
Just everything was, it all, like I said, the players were the ones that kind of taught me. The back doors came out of it, out of the way people would defend us. So all this part of that part, and I just kind of looked at it, how do I kind of put it all in as one and keep it flowing? And that's the biggest thing.
When you were implementing it with your players, did you start with some 2-on-2, build it 3-on-3, 4-on-4, or did you just teach whole and have them try to figure things out 5-on-5?
I go both ways. The drill part, I like doing 3-on-0 because now you can really work on each. When you do 5-on-0 right away, what happens, believe it or not, I'm one of those guys, I want them to do it perfect in practice, especially when we're teaching it, because I know there's a ton of slippage in the game. So if you let slippage in practice, then that slippage really multiplies in the game. So try to teach them the finer points on the 3-on-0 where you can break each position. Then we'll go to the 5-on-0. So I kind of go both ways, but I really like the 3-on-0 breakdown better.
And then as far as like teaching them to make different reads, how quickly were you adding defenders into some of those drills or games? And early on in the year, did you see them pick it up fast, or were they making mistakes, but like you were okay with that, believing that they could, at some point, they would be figuring things out in games?
You're right on that. I'll tell you right now, this is the first time being at Fresno State where I'm teaching kids who've never played this style. And we get 1 hour a day, 4 days a week. We get 4 hours during this time. And some of my assistants look at me and said, I don't know, is this going to work? It's, because they're having a hard time picking up. I don't have anybody, when you're teaching high school, you're at a JC. Even at JC, you got 5, 6 kids that came back the following year that know a little about it and so forth. But I just say it's just one of those things that we got to be patient. Just got to keep building, and it's going to take time for them to understand it. Do they know it now? No. But each day I can see us getting a little bit better. But it's chaos right now. I mean, look, somebody came and watched, and they would probably fire my butt right now. I said, what the hell are you doing out there?
But I think I would imagine I would love to come watch you play, because I would imagine that in your practices, there's a lot of celebrating while they're kicking the ball around, because you can see where they're headed. Where I think that's where I made mistakes probably early on of wanting it to look perfect from day one. And when it didn't, freaking out. And so I wrote down 2 words, I think, and this is for every coach, no matter what style of play, but you need to have competency. Like, you got to know what you're talking about. And coaching in the world of dribble drive and probably so many other areas, like, you got that. And then, but you also have to have conviction. You got to really believe in it. And I would imagine your players feel that from you, that coach knows what he's talking about and where we're going to head. And man, he really believes in it. That gives them the opportunity to have success with it, in my opinion.
I totally agree. See, I just think the biggest thing, Matt, is, let's be honest, when a game comes down to it, can you beat your guy and make a play? Right? I mean, I'm a big believer. We have plays. Don't think we don't have plays. But I want to, instead of teaching them how to run plays, I want to teach them how to play. So if this guy is going to play me flat, or if he's going to hug me, or if he's going to play high side, how am I going to handle that? Okay. if I pass the ball to somebody and I stand there, okay, I just shut down his gap. So when I pass, if I cut hard, I open up, to me, it's like a hockey assist. I open up a gap for him to be able to attack. So these are the little things that we try and teach them. You know, the spacing when we start attacking a triple gap. What's the spacing rules? And every time I can shut my eyes, I know if I drive here, this guy's open there, this guy's open there, or that guy there, depending on where the help comes from. You know, and then the question is now, can you get guys to beat your guys? You know, so there's two things I think that can really help players look a lot better than they are. One is teaching them, you know, teaching your teams how to open up gaps. Just think about it. If you try to beat somebody in a gap like this, okay, or if you have a gap like that, you're going to have more success in this gap than in this gap.
Yep.
And that's what we try to do. We try to open up those gaps. And I think the other thing, if people can teach it, and it's really hard to understand, is not to catch and go, but to go and catch, to be on the move. See, for me, the only time I really want my players catch it standing, if we're really playing the offense right, is if they have the shot.
Yep.
Otherwise, they're on the move. Because if I catch it, make a move, and go, especially in high school, you're going to see the travel call a lot. But if I get it on the move, now I have an advantage over that player. And that's what we try.
I love that idea of go and catch and go. And again, that's that sticky language that when you're looking at breaking down your flow, your continuity, what concepts can your players just rattle off? The things that like those little go-tos right there. I would imagine you have a pretty long list of those throughout with your motion.
I honestly, I really don't. I try to teach them. There's three things to the offense. Okay, there's really three very simple things. Number one, attack mentality. Every time you touch the ball, I want you to think score. Okay, and I think every player loves that.
Yeah.
But now, let's be honest. I might have the ball and there's a hell of a defender on me and I can't beat him. So I got to be smart on that. But I want you to think attack mentality. I don't want you to think catch, pass, whatever. Okay, so attack mentality. Number two, we got to open up gaps. And number three, on the attack, what's our spacing like? And that's really how simple it is.
I want to ask about some ways that you could maybe, I'm going to say this, but I don't get the wheel started. I don't like thinking wheel with dribble drive, because when we would be attacking and we get that first drag, especially if my guard up here started to come too early, was maybe a little too eager, or we would call creepy here. That's one of our phrases, don't be creepy. And because kids don't like to be creepy, so when you tell them don't be creepy, that sticks. But if we would get the other coach inevitably would yell, it's just a weave. It's just a weave. And I'd be thinking, it's not a weave. Like, we're not trying to weave. But so the wheel or weave, getting that first guy who can beat somebody, because maybe what a lot of coaches why they would not do something like this is, I don't have a guy that can just go by somebody. Well, I would say skill work, and then maybe create the speed and space that helps. What are some other things that you do to maybe get that movement or the closeouts happening?
Again, I'm going to just, it's funny that you talk about closeout. Most people want to create closeouts, and so do I. But I think the hardest thing to guard is attacking from one side of the floor to the other. So think about it. If I'm on, let's call it the right side, the two side. If I go a point guard up top, 1 to 2, right? Okay, the point guard's got the ball on up top on the right-hand side. How do you defend 2? Do you let 2 get the ball? Do you let the ball go from guard to wing? Okay, most people would probably deny that, right? Well, let's just say 2's in the corner. Let's say 2's in the corner and 1 penetrates. Do you have 2 help give up the corner 3?
Those are just those decision moments that, yeah.
I don't think the way the game is going now, a lot of people want to give the best shooter an open corner 3.
Yep.
So when the ball's on that right side and you're guarding that good shooter in the corner, okay, you're probably told to do what? Make sure he doesn't get a 3 up.
Yep.
Okay, now pass from guard to guard up top, cut through, open up that triple gap.
Yep.
What Because the ball went from one guard to the next. Now
that defender's in help back there, not
right.
denying the corner. So when that ball comes downhill, then that's an even bigger space that he has to guard, and the decision's harder. Sorry.
So you go from strong side defender, it passed. Now you're weak side defender, help defender. Now all of a sudden they attack you, and you're in that, what do I do?
Yeah.
And now you're teaching that corner guy what his reads are. And to me, I think that's the hardest thing to defend. I really do.
What I love about that, too, is the conflict that it puts between that defender and the coach of that team. Because a second ago, he was doing exactly what you want. And then when that pass is made and the slice happens, that straight cut across to open up the triple gap, if he does sprint into help like he's supposed to, he's doing what he's supposed to. But then he knows when that ball's coming, golly, do I guard the 3-point line again, or do I give up a layup? Anything that we can do offensively to take good defensive habits and make them pay for that. Got me fired up, Coach. Sorry.
Yep. So that's why I say I think attacking from one side to the other, and then closeouts are the two things you always want to create. But I think more people talk about closeouts, but I love the attack from one side to the other.
Well, I think that's the best way to create the closeouts, because if that guy does try to, and I love the idea of the scoring mentality. That's something early on within our flow. I ask them, like, do you want to have a passer's mentality or scorer's mentality? And because they're nice kids and they've probably been taught that way, 90% of them say we have a pass mentality first. Actually teaching them that having a scorer's mentality doesn't mean you're selfish. That's what we're asking you to do. We want you to be aggressive. The more scoring mentality you have, the deeper you'll get, the more dangerous you become. And then those kicks will still be there. But I think that's a great way, instead of just going from the drive to a drag, that maybe creates a short closeout, right? Because that angle when they're coming up, and it's usually, a 10 to 12 foot? Coach, you're talking about maybe almost a 15-foot closeout just off of that one pass and drive.
But now add to that, Matt, go and catch.
Yeah.
Now you're going to where you thought he was, but now he's on the move.
Yeah.
Like half a step more.
Okay. And anytime that I say something wrong, Coach, feel free to disagree with me. I don't mind that at all. But how do you teach them whether to catch and shoot or go and catch? Because what I wouldn't want is a guy that is able to catch and shoot, which in my opinion, the catch and shoot three, golly, that's one of the best things that we can produce besides just getting to the rim ourselves or the line. What's the difference there?
Real simple. So if you're guarding me and I'm a hell of a shooter and all you want to do is hug me, guess what? I stay in that corner. So what did I do for my teammate?
You opened up space. Yeah.
Opened up a big gap.
Yep.
Now you're playing because I got a good driver up here too, which you got to respect. Okay. Now you're playing what we call flat. Okay. Where you're kind of playing the same level as you're guarding me. So I don't really have a back cut there. So once that action starts coming and I know I can't get my three, I'm moving. So you got to make a commitment. Do you stay with me or do you stop the drive? Okay. Now, if you play high side on me, you play above me, I'll guarantee you for a split second there, when this guy starts to drive, the defender's going to turn his head. As soon as he turns his head, we back cut. So we high side, look to back cut. Flat, look to kick up on the move. And if they hug you, stay there. If they suck in, stay there for your three. And I
like that.
You teach that from all the different spots on the court.
And in my opinion, especially with the high school kids, to give them more space and to make those reads just really apparent. Like I want them they got to be able to do what they see. And so I have to help them to see the right things. Those 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 games, when we were running a lot of that 4-out, the 4-out 1-in idea with dribble drive, I loved seeing them create and find solutions out of that.
No, definitely. And again, all this has been developed by how my players play. I would watch them just play, and I'd see this, oh, I like that. Then I try to make it to where they would understand, okay, that's what you want to do. Let's make that part of the rules that we do.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.